This isn't happening! The HOA is ruining everything!
There has to be something we can do!
The envelope was thin, white, and ordinary. That's what scared me the most. It wasn't taped to our door like the others. It wasn't aggressive. No red ink. No bold warnings. It was slipped quietly into our mailbox like it didn't want attention. 7 days to comply. That was the first line I read. I stood there longer than I should have, holding that paper like it might explain itself if I stared hard enough. We hadn't broken any rules. At least, not that we knew of. We kept the lawn trimmed. Trash bins were hidden. No loud music. No complaints. We were the kind of neighbors HOAs usually forgot. Inside, my husband looked up from the table. "What is it?" he asked. "HOA," I said. That was enough to change the air in the room. The notice didn't accuse us of anything specific. It was vague, almost polite. It mentioned non-compliance and visual inconsistencies. No photos. No measurements. Just a deadline. 7 days. We read it again that night, slowly, sentence by sentence. Still nothing made sense. The next morning, I noticed something new. A car parked across the street. Engine running. Windows tinted. It wasn't blocking traffic. It wasn't breaking rules. It was just watching. By day 3, the emails started. Short. Formal. Cold. "We are monitoring the situation. Please ensure compliance within the given time frame." Monitoring what? I walked around our house with fresh eyes. The paint looked fine. The porch light worked. The garden hadn't changed overnight. But the feeling had. Our home felt smaller. Quieter. Like it was holding its breath. On the 5th day, our neighbor across the street stopped waving. On the 6th day, someone reported us for parking too close to the curb. We moved the car 3 inches forward. It still wasn't enough. That night, I realized the problem wasn't the rule. It was that they wouldn't tell us which one we'd broken. The 7th day arrived without answers. No inspection. No explanation. Just another message. Failure to comply will result in further action. Further action. The words sat heavy on my chest all morning. I finally called the HOA office. Straight to voicemail. I left a calm message. Polite. Respectful. I asked for clarity. No response. By afternoon, a notice appeared online in the community portal. Our address was listed. Publicly. No details. Just a label. Under review. That's when the look started. People didn't confront us. They didn't ask questions. They just watched. Conversations stopped when we walked by. Doors closed faster than usual. It felt like we'd been quietly marked. That evening, someone knocked. Not hard. Not angry. Just firm enough to be intentional. A woman stood there with a clipboard. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't smile. "You were given 7 days," she said. "To fix what?" I asked. She glanced past me into our home. "That's not my role." Then she turned and left. No explanation. No next steps. Just certainty. That night, my husband whispered, "Maybe we should just do whatever they want." "But what do they want?" I asked. He didn't answer. The next morning, we received a fine. Then another notice. Then a warning about escalation. Still no rule. Still no clarity. Only pressure. I realized then what this was really about. Control doesn't need noise. It doesn't need threats. It just needs silence and time. 7 days had passed. But whatever this was only beginning. The fine wasn't large. That's what made it worse. It was small enough to feel intentional. A test. Something to see how quickly we would comply without asking questions. We paid it the same day, hoping it would end there. It didn't. The next notice arrived before the payment even cleared. This time, the language changed. No more, please. No more neutral tone. Just statements. Continued noncompliance will result in corrective measures. Corrective. We asked again. For a rule number, a photograph of a written explanation. Anything concrete. What we received instead was a visit. 2 people this time. Both wearing badges with the HOA logo. Both smiling in a way that didn't reach their eyes. They walked around our property slowly. Not inspecting, evaluating. One of them scribbled notes without looking at the page. "What exactly are you documenting?" my husband asked. The man looked up. Patterns. That was the word. Patterns of what? They never said. That evening, the community portal updated again. Another label appeared beside our address. Ongoing compliance concern. I searched the portal for other homes with the same label. There were none. By the end of the week, new rules began to appear in our inbox, rules we didn't remember voting on. Small things. Easy to miss. Window reflections. Outdoor furniture angles. The placement of decorative items. Each one carried a fine. Each one arrived without discussion. It felt less like enforcement and more like pressure, applied carefully, consistently, until something cracked. What cracked was our routine. We stopped inviting people over. We avoided being outside. We double-checked everything, then checked again. Our home had become a performance. One night, my husband sat at the table long after dinner. "They want us tired," he said quietly. I nodded. Control wasn't loud. It was exhausting. And the most frightening part? No one else seemed surprised. It started with a mistake. Not ours. The HOA uploaded a document to the community portal by accident. It was meant to be private board only. For less than an hour, it was visible to everyone. I almost didn't open it. The title looked boring. Administrative. The kind of thing no one reads. But my address was there. Highlighted. I scrolled slowly, my hands shaking. There were notes. Internal comments. Discussions about our home that felt less like rule enforcement and more like strategy. They comply quickly. Low resistance. Good test case. Test case. That word burned. Further down, a sentence stood out. If this works, we can expand enforcement across similar households. This wasn't about rules. It was about control. I downloaded the file before it disappeared. 10 minutes later, the portal refreshed, and it was gone. But it was too late. That night, I sent a single message to the community group chat. Not emotional. Not angry. Just a question. Has anyone else seen this document? And does anyone know why one home was labeled a test case? The replies didn't come immediately. Then one neighbor responded. Then another. Private messages followed. Screenshots. Stories. We weren't alone. Others had received vague notices. Quiet fines. Unexplained warnings. They'd just never compared notes. Until now. The HOA board called an emergency meeting 3 days later. Attendance was mandatory. That alone told us everything. The room was full. More than I'd ever seen. People I barely recognized were suddenly paying attention. The board president spoke first. Calm. Reassuring. "This is all being taken out of context," she said. That's when my husband stood up. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He just asked one question. Why were certain families labeled low resistance in your internal notes? Silence. Someone else asked about fines. Another about rule changes no one voted on. Another about selective enforcement. The calm cracked. By the end of the meeting, the board promised a review. By the end of the month, 2 members resigned. The fines were refunded quietly. The notices stopped. The portal labels disappeared. No apology. But no pressure either. Our home felt like ours again. Not because the HA changed, but because their silence had lost its power. A week later, a new envelope arrived. This one was different. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a deadline. It was confirmation. Your property is in full compliance. No further action required. I stood in the doorway, holding it, and felt something unfamiliar. Relief. 7 days had started it. But speaking up together ended it. And the HOA never looked the same again.